the right are all flipping out about it, and I feel like we should talk about it.
Okay.
Just you'll be able to see what I mean when you look it up, why they would react the way they do. Yeah.
I'm already on it.
Yeah.
Just saw your link. I was already there.
Excellent. In trouble now. You'll never take me alive, Rob Glenn.
He'll never find me. He'll never find me. I'm hidden behind lots of firewalls.
Yep, look out. They're right outside.
I like these banned AI applications.
Oh, yeah.
In the EU include.
What's up, chat room? I think we're sounding okay. I think everything's working so far. I can't wait to show you the Saudi AI. It's going to be very popular with MAGA. Just saying.
Transparency requirements.
Oh yes, there is. They're not gonna like that. You'll see that there's. I don't know why the panic, but you'll see why I'm like. It's nice watching them get all verklempt about it. Okay, we're up on Substack. Our lovely Substack people in the chat room. Throw some hearts in there if you're watching on Substack, people. There's some folks. What's going on? And Instagram. Oh, Instagram is now live. And we're ready to go. All right, let me get us in here. And welcome to the morning show, everybody. It's Hal Sparks, Megaworldwide. Joining me today, of course, is our dear friend Rob Glenn. Oops, there he is. Hold on. I have a special window for you. Hold on, that I put in there. Yes, it's true. Which is where? Oh, it'd be this one right here. Boink. There you go. Now you've got your own
Ooh.
little like thing. It's nice. Yeah, yeah. It looks like you're digitally put in there. You're like an AI in the
Yeah.
future where like a little screen comes down and we're looking at the digital twin of Rob Glenn AI.
Yes.
So
I'm
uh,
Chamford.
yes. Good morning. Hi. How are you in general?
Great.
Yeah.
How are you?
Obviously, I'm terrific. I was up very late last night because I covered Trump's speech in Riyadh, which I have to say, if I had to sum it all up in one, like in the best way I could encapsulate his speech and his feelings towards MBS, it was amazingly. I was like, it was. I've never seen him show affection towards a family member on that level, much
Yeah.
less like even his wife. But holy smokes, like he did the Martin Short agent from The Big Picture. You, I'm not talking to you. Call me. That like he. It was stunning. I was like, you know what? If this asshole, even at this late date, comes out of the closet and finally can just be himself, let himself alone, maybe he'll all his misogyny will magically drop away and he'll realize that he doesn't hate women, he just loves men, and he's been fighting this the whole time. And that's what he's so fucking pissed at the
I
world
mean,
about. And you don't have to be anymore. Just be you. I almost feel like that would be the one thing that changes the whole world. And can you imagine MAGA if he came out of the closet? Can you imagine if he pulled a Lindsey Graham, like he outpaced? I like the miracle of that thing would be just the most bizarre lightning moment and a great lesson for
well,
humanity. Don't force
he's
your kids to grow up the
on.
way you're, different than they are, right?
Oh, sorry. There's a good delay, so I'll be more careful.
It's okay.
He's on video with Rudy Giuliani cross-dressing, so
Right, and
uh,
motorboating Rudy
it's happened
Giuliani.
before.
Right,
Yeah.
he motorboated Rudy Giuliani in drag in a department store. But it would explain so much. You know what I mean? It would explain, and again, this is why we don't make people stuff their identities. It's not healthy. So,
Yeah.
anyways, it was just bizarre. But on top of that, the biggest thing, and the one thing I wanted to talk to you about was the there right now there is a huge backlash in Trump world. And Chuck Schumer came out against the deal that Nvidia and Humane are making. And for those that don't know, Humane is the name of the Saudi Royal AI, whatever they're putting together.
Okay.
So yeah, um, the New York Times has an article. Let's see if I can show you this right here. That this is Trump walking in Riyadh or whatever, and this says outsourcer in chief, is Trump trading away America's tech future? That's one of the articles. The other one came out. Trump's rush to cut deals with AI deals in Saudi Arabia, and UAE opens rift with China hawks. So the Republicans who are worried about China and whether these things will end up in their hands, or whether, because Saudi Arabia has basically no rules about who can buy in and use the cloud source versions of their AI, China will get around this issue just by using a cloud-based server system in Saudi Arabia, and there won't be any firewalls to protect it. And they're right about that, I would like to say, just for the record. And then there was, Schumer slams Trump-led deals to sell AI chips to Saudi Arabia, UAE. And for those who don't know, Jensen Huang and NVIDIA were in Saudi Arabia. They're going to sell them 18,000 of their highest level chips. They're making a deal to sell their like super expensive, like the Blackwell chip or Blackwell Plus. They're moving up so fast, it's hard to keep track of what the latest one is. And by the time the order ships, it'll be another iteration forward, more than likely. But this is, there's reason to be concerned around this. Absolutely. And the reason is just they will not have any of the rules that the EU has or the United States has about who can actually, via cloud computing, use the AI that's in that country. They're going to circumvent that entirely. Technically speaking, as long as they use a VPN or something, they could use Iran could use Saudi Arabia's AI because the rules are so lax. And I think that's the main reason why people might be concerned, right?
Probably. I mean, but we don't have rules either. And one of the other stories is as the EU creates rules,
Yes.
the right is freaking out about it. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, when we say like, you, it's like AI is not a thing that is going to rise up and kill us.
Yeah.
Who cares if Saudi Arabia has it? In fact, it might make it more obvious what they're doing.
Right.
If other people can see what they're doing and use and actually have like a vision into or a window into what they're thinking. A lot of people use Grok in that way, and you can use DeepSeek in that way. You can actually, it creates transparency is my point.
Yeah, whether they want it or not, which is why I think, and this is something we'll talk about this morning, no doubt. By the way, hit the like, share the show, patreon.com/Hal Sparks, and of course, follow Rob on Blue Sky, and it's just, are you at robglenn.bluesky.app or whatever it does, or do you have your website on there now?
I think so. I haven't been, no, I just have, it's at Rob Glenn. I haven't been posting a lot lately. I've been so busy. But
you've been very busy. But, when you get back to it, there it will go, whatever. So subscribe, everybody, if you would, to this channel right now. Because, you and I have been on this, and I'm very bullish about AI. I think it'll be very, a net positive for the most part. So do you. We're also demystifying it on the show. I think a lot of people have this sort of mythical idea of Terminator that's just going to happen. Like Skynet will come alive, and its first impulse will be the worst impulse that humans have, which makes no sense once logic is built into it. The idea that, well, of course you'll come to the Thanos conclusion. Who wouldn't is the kind of thing racist assholes say. So that's why it tends to pop up when like Grok users are talking about it. But there's one key category that I think is important I wanted to talk to you about, which is in these new EU rules, which we'll look at right here. This is we saw Glenn Beck freaking out about this. These were signed into law last year. The rules about regulating them technically went online February 5th. There's an implementation window where while they're implementing it, they will be checking stuff and making sure that they're not undermining growth in the area while they're trying to keep stuff safe. And so it's like a constant gardening effort instead of setting a rule based on something you don't understand and making it sit there even if the situation changes. So it's a lot smarter than, well, I was about to say Glenn Beck, but who isn't? But it's a lot smarter than the right wing, who are panicking about it because they're thinking about it in very rudimentary ways. But the one key thing about it, and this is the part that probably scares the Elon Musks of the world, is that these are really more about regulation of general use AI, not specialty AIs that are designed for military application or science applications or biotech or those kind of things. There's definitely rules about you can't make a bioweapon with it, but there's a rule against that anyways, as you often say. Like there are already rules on the books against doing that shit. This is just another way of doing it. But the big part of this is about the misuse of and the dangerous application of general purpose AI, meaning creating like fake hate-filled websites just endlessly and pouring them all over the internet and gacking up the entire thing, doing dedicated denial of service attacks using AI, creating deep fakes of people that, of them nude or doing something they haven't done or those kind of things, which is the general purpose ones. And that's basically what Grok is for. OpenAI, Meta, all these other companies, they're treating it like a corporate thing anyways, so they don't allow their AIs to do it. They train them against it. But Musk has announced that his is ultimately a truth-seeking AI. It is, that it seeks absolute truth, when in reality, what he means is you can do anything with it, and there are no guidelines that he doesn't set himself. Obviously, if you're asking for truth about the funding of Grok or the funding of his purchase of Twitter or the machinery behind his server farm and the actual function of it, which is a crypto mine, it won't talk to you about that. It will lie to you specifically or say, no, Elon Musk does not engage in misinformation, and any idea to the contrary is in violation of our terms of service, right? So that's what he's worried about, I think, is these general purpose chatbot versions of AI, that they will lose market share to these rules.
Yeah, well, and those things function in more of like what you might call a media space. And we've always regulated over-the-air media, radio, TV, broadcast. There should be more, but there are some certain levels of social media regulation.
Right.
And I guess to the point of Grok, like what he means by truth, in my opinion, is his truth, like what he wants you to know as truth. And so a lot of these that I'm reading through on the article that you had up on before, it's more like regulating it as a media source, as like a Google,
right? Yes,
or like a Google as a not as a. There's this thing in between. So social media and media are different than Google as a search engine, and that's one of the things that's so interesting about AI, is that it's kind of combining them all together. It's not really a search engine, but it's kind of becoming one.
Well, they've added. We'll talk about that a little bit. How OpenAI has added two things lately to their suite of tools that are available in it. One is a web search factor, which they see as a better workaround and a deeper thought version of Google's main search algorithm, which is going out the window, because even Gemini, if you go to the Google website, if you Google something right now, Gemini jumps in and fills in what it thinks based on your previous searches. Instead of just throwing up the most chosen shit from other people, it kind of goes through what it knows and collects about you as far as what you're kind of looking for, and helps narrow that search based on what you've actually used before. So a little scary, but also a lot more helpful if you're actually doing a search that's meaningful to you. And then the other thing is a shopping assistant, which if you're hunting for the best price or the availability of something you're shopping for, it will now hunt that down for you. That it'll even find coupon codes in some cases that exist that you may not be able to see. And that was one of the things. It used to be these coupon code websites that if you knew them, or you could see where people posted them, and they rotate all the time, you could go on there, find it. But most people didn't, because it was too complicated. You couldn't tell if there would be one for the thing you're looking for. Now, OpenAI's will go and look for those and automatically add them if you want to anything you're about to purchase. Right.
That top window of Google has been kind of a issue for a lot of people. And I don't know if it's really like that well known, because when you search, it used to be that you would just, like at the beginning of Google, you would just get whatever came up based on their algorithm of choosing what was most pertinent, or what was most popular, or whatever. And people game that system with search engine optimization things. And then what they did is they added Google AdWords. So now before their algorithm result was the ones people paid for, and people would bid for those and things like that. And then the AdWords got moved down, and the one before that was them essentially deciding what the answer was. And the easy way to think about that would be, if you wanted to know what the weather was like, you would type in, what's the temperature in Chicago? Or you could just say, what's the temperature? What's the time? And it would know where you were based on your IP, but it was not getting that information from a Google source. It was getting it from, let's say, the Weather Channel or something like that. Let's say that you wanted to know what the score of the Cubs game was last night. So their spiders would be gathering that information and putting it in that top thing. And what a lot of sites got upset about was the fact that you weren't going to their site to see what the Cubs score was. You were just going to see. And so they complained to Google that that Google was essentially like stealing their I don't know, their influence, their IP, their traffic. Yeah, so they were doing the work, and Google was essentially stealing it. That's supercharged by AI, and in theory, AI. So now what it is Gemini. So now you've taken away that thing which was Google's choice of what the answer was, and now Gemini is doing. So it's now maybe technically Google telling you, but it's really Gemini telling you. And in theory, Gemini would be doing the exact same thing. Like you said, if it was shopping, why would it take all the time to go to each website? It would go to those sites that were conglomerating the stuff, right?
The actual data where they get it from. So they bypass the site to borrow it, which is what they used to drive traffic to you, even if they were borrowing that little amount and putting it at the top of the Google search where you could just peek at it. There's still a chance that you would have clicked on that and gone to the website where it came from because you would see the link involved. Right. In the case of Gemini, it's bypassing the website and just going to MLB's listing of all the stuff on their database of scores. Just like these websites would, right? So
the fear is that Gemini is like a Google thing, right? Like you have to go through Google to get the Gemini answer. And that's where AI actually isn't what people think. Like you don't need to go, you can run your own Gemini effectively. And we're not there yet because hardware for regular people isn't quite there yet. Right. But those things are converging right now.
Yep.
And I would argue back to your first story that, what was it, 18,000 GPUs?
Yeah.
Like at some point, there's a limit to what a normal person needs an AI thing for, right?
Right.
There just is. I mean, how many things do you need to know in a day? And most of those things come through apps on your phone. If you just replaced all the things that your phone currently, that you ask your phone to tell you or that you interact with on your phone, it actually could fit on your phone. You don't need Gemini at all.
Right. So you don't need AlphaFold and you don't need Wolfram Alpha or whatever. You don't need these sites that are like a Library of Alexandria depth. You need a kind of like functional version. And you know how like at one point the maps on Apple's devices and stuff, it was a big deal that if you lived in a certain area, you could download the map and judging by cell towers, it could tell where you were, limited to your phone, not sending it anywhere else, and only you knew where you were, so it couldn't track you or anything like that. But if you used the map that was in your phone, you could just get walking directions or driving directions in the map area that you downloaded to your phone. It was kind of a big deal. And they fought this thing with, I think, Garmin, because again, this is kind of like the AI thing you're talking about. Garmin had this lock on downloading maps because they made a lot of them. They were responsible for they owned the maps themselves. Yes. And so it became a licensing thing.
The important thing was there was no delivery mechanism to get it to individual phones. You had to go through Garmin.
Right. And you had to have a device. Continues. And I mean, it's like, yes. And so at one point, downloading an AI that encompasses what is effectively the map of the area that you deal in does not require one of these rows and rows of computers and servers, these big pizza box factories that they're talking about. It can all fit on your phone. In like rudimentary knowledge is becoming so crammed into these smaller AI models, and that's what eventually Siri is becoming. They're talking about how like Gemini on your phone is AI on there, or they're built for AI. The chip that is in all the new Apple phones, or even the new laptops and hard drive, or the desktops rather, all of those are designed for what is effectively that level of AI. If you're gonna run a biology lab at Harvard or something, then you're gonna run a row of these things that will download all the available AI material trained on something for that task. But it will kind of suck at suggesting a restaurant because it will be specific to that task, because you won't need to go to the cloud for it. You won't need to go to another country for it. And you probably, I gotta say, and this, the NVIDIA chips that they're talking about, these Blackwell chips and the ones that are in digit or whatever, they're like $2,000 a piece minimum, and then in a $10,000 unit for the board that it's actually on. Mm-hmm. One of those could house the entire library of Harvard and all the data and all the crisscross data of Harvard's entire medical wing, their entire science wing, their engineering wing. And it could, in theory, if they have branch agreements with other schools, which they do, to share scientific data, could communicate with the AI that would be at that school, or still, even if they didn't have that, maintain all that. They could go to the computers over there and go, oh, all this stuff that we've been working with you guys on that you always update, every so often we're going to peek at that and it will be loaded into our AI. So if the power fails, we will still have access to the latest information from you guys, and vice versa. If you set up a row of servers at Yale or at Princeton or something like that, and we have our astronomy folks or our science and any of our STEM areas, will have access to all that new stuff all the time. That is, that's the positive upside of that.
And 18,000 GPUs is effectively creating a factory that trains AI.
That's right.
That's all it is. It's no different than the Memphis data center that Musk is trying.
Except it's
functional. Just building it in Saudi Arabia versus here. So this is, no comment on Trump. Trump doesn't understand any of this. He just wants to say
he actually thinks an AI factory is a factory, like that makes something like the chips or something. He thinks AI factories are making the NVIDIA chips. He doesn't understand that they're using factory as a euphemism, and that it is just it's interpolating. It's just creating. It's reflecting on data and growing the data inside there, but it's all virtual. And the physical space is a thing, but the factory itself isn't cranking out chips that are magically printed with this AI like a fucking car that drives off the lot.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, like everything else, he wants to announce something with a big number and a dollar sign in front of it.
Right.
That's all it is.
Well, and also, it's actually not that big. It was a $5 billion, quote, investment. But in reality, they're selling $5 billion worth of stuff to Saudi Arabia, which is fucking chump change to these guys, right? And somebody said Greenland AI is coming. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of like placing an order and getting in line, because NVIDIA can only make so many.
That's right.
GPUs.
So and you buy your way to the front of the line by paying more. Yeah.
Yeah. If Trump is able to effectively use the power of the presidency to put restrictions on NVIDIA chips, then it's a way to grift favor to be in line for them, because there's only so many, right? But it goes to this concept that everybody's racing to try to have the big monolithic server farm. Like, people think, like, he even wants to think about it like the big building, like the big Skynet building.
Yes.
Like, it's all right there. And that's just not how it is.
Nope.
So you
do need
horsepower. You need energy and horsepower to train. And you're going to keep training. But the use of it it's different. It's not like that.
Yeah. So what's your I have a question for you on that particular thing, though, real quick. So what's your thoughts on the energy draw story that we keep hearing about how much we're going to need so much energy, AI is going to draw so much energy when the function of it starts to shrink, and it offloads onto, like you're saying, your phone? Is that energy draw that they're projecting outward going to disappear or lessen or be kind of exaggerated because it's based on something from 2 years ago?
On the Friday Discord, somebody, one of your followers put an article about data centers using up, like going to places that don't have water effectively, like we're building these data centers in places that the environment can't support them. Those articles that you read, I'm going to kind of go in steps on this. Those articles that you read they're playing a little loose with those numbers.
Yes.
Because they're taking all data centers and then they're saying that all data centers are AI. That's
Right.
not true. So AI consists right now, you can Google that and look it up. I want to say it's like around 10 to 15% of data center usage is AI right now. And the projections are that in by I think 2030 or something like that, it's going to be about 25%. So every number that you see, like that you're worried about data centers sucking away all the resources, realize that AI is less than 20% of that now, and less than 30% in the future. So that's the first aspect of that to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
go ahead.
Did you have something coming up?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so then the next step is, we were just talking about Google, right? So you go to Google and Gemini gives you the answer. You didn't have to hit Google's server for each page and each result and go to those pages and all that stuff because you never went there. Right. You just got the result, right? So in theory, the energy needed to get the answer, while on a one-to-one basis seems like it's more than what it was before, it takes less infrastructure to get there, because it's trained once and it gets the answer, right? And there's ways to get like answers that are changing all the time, right? So that's the second one. The third thing is that, like everything else, AI is extremely inefficient right now. And well, you could even argue, I would argue that it's not actually as inefficient as it seems. It's only inefficient when compared to the efficient way we, in theory, do it now. Right. But it's going to get more. It's going to get more efficient. Right. And because it's stacked on top of what we do now, it's always going to be more inefficient. Right. But as it replaces it, your overall footprint becomes equal or less. So, so if you're going to complain about data centers, I would start complaining about how many pictures do you need to save on your iPhone times 8 billion people in the world, right? Well, and as opposed to AI, which is, so a lot of it is cloud storage. It's compute for things like nuclear missiles or weather. I mean, the amount of energy it takes to do weather is insane.
Yes. I would argue traffic is even worse because weather does not have a tendency to shift when there's an accident in front of it down the road. So like if you look at traffic, while it seems like it's rudimentary and it always flows the same way and you can kind of develop, there are traffic patterns in a city. When something out of the ordinary happens environmentally, a road, there's a fire main, water main breaks, or there's a fire at a house, or there's a crash, the traffic has to go completely around it. And so that affects all the flow of this. When a tornado comes through or wind builds up for this tornado, it doesn't give a shit that the same mountain range that's been there for centuries is there. It will either go up and over it because it's strong enough, or it will dissipate when it hits it. These are the only two options that occur in that circumstance. There's a sort of a hop or it stops. So arguably there are more variables in traffic than there are in weather, and there are almost an infinite number of options in weather as far as the ferocity of wind, the amount of precipitation, what that precipitation comes in based on variabilities in temperature, from hail to light rain to drizzle to dew. You know, there's this spectrum of stuff. And imagine, that's why we've been talking about how more than likely cities are going to have AIs that help run all of these systems and maximize traffic flow and all these kind of things when these things happen, in a way that a bunch of humans sitting around can create a pretty well adaptable system, stoplights and the like, that's pretty good, but cannot possibly, in an adaptive sense, one-to-one, act like FAA controllers in car traffic around a city to maximize if there's a problem. They can only just call somebody, cops go down there, stand out there with fucking cones and start doing this. And once you start talking about, a city, that's got an economy the size of most countries like Los Angeles or San Francisco or Chicago or New York, you're going to see them shifting over to these situations to maximize the productivity of their citizenry. That's just going to happen. But again, it doesn't have to be that big. Once it gets, we were talking about this, like the unique nature of that, as difficult and as big as the traffic part of that is, it still can be, we only give a shit to the borders of the county that Houston is in, or Cook County in Chicago. And so it really only needs to pay attention to that stuff. And therefore, if the other counties want to have their own AI to fix this stuff, it will interact with ours as far as where those roads connect, but we don't have to watch for that. All we got to do is our little area, maximize that with a buffer zone of 10 miles in case people route themselves out of the county and into the county at the edge of it or some shit like that. But that'll be enough. And they'll have that for water and I think the future is in data collection. I think garbage in, garbage out is a problem that AI will have, and the details it will need to have to make good judgments and real decisions, if you're going to put it in charge of something, will be entirely data driven. And so that one of the next big frontiers in technological advancement will be sensors for almost everything, right? Water mains and yeah.
So the biggest hurdle for self-driving cars is actually on the sensor side.
Yep.
It's trying, so they have a bunch of data coming in, let's say from a Tesla. Tesla's all cameras.
Yep.
Other self-driving cars use LiDAR, so they have both cameras and LiDAR. LiDAR is like sonar, light-based sonar.
Yeah.
And it gives you almost more like a three-dimensional map, whereas the vision systems are only flat 2D images like a camera gives you, right? Yep. So the computer or the video card or the GPU or whatever's the AI chip, whatever it is, has to get those pieces of data, and it just has to figure out what's actually there, right? So there's two things happening. One is the AI is getting better, or the algorithm is getting better at recognizing that what the data shows it is what it actually is.
Right.
And that takes time, and it has to learn from that. The second thing that's happening is we're developing, as you say, better sensors so that you can give it either different information or better information that helps it recognize those things more.
Right.
So the real underlying thing here, to go back to your first question, is that it's more likely that these advancements will make things more efficient than run away and become things that draw unattainable amounts of power. That's likely not to happen. It's not how it works.
Yeah, and that's been the sticking point for me, is that it's like if you were looking at how much the inefficiency of gas engines when Ford invented the Model T, what that engine did and how much energy it consumed for, even if it had headlamps at the time, like what would be required to make this thing go 20 miles an hour at its max top speed, and how big the tank would have to be to go across a state on one tank of gas was just fucking enormous. It was ridiculous. It was slow. You were better off using a horse and buggy for anything farther than 80 miles or some shit. There were even hooks on the front of early cars where if you needed to, you could hook horses to them in case the fucking thing ran out of gas, because there weren't gas stations everywhere. Remember, that was one of the things people forget, is that, especially these assholes who bitch about charging stations and the government paying for charging stations, is how much we subsidized gas stations across this country as part of the interstate highway system, right? There was a huge push and support. You don't talk about picking winners and losers. We picked gasoline, absolutely. And we went all in on that from a governmental standpoint to guarantee that we had a national defense system, that if we had to get vehicles full of soldiers to either of our borders in case somebody showed up in fucking boats in the 1930s and 40s, we could deal with them. And if you had to rely on, half of these things had to be pulled by horse and carriage, you were screwed. And if they ran out of gas, they couldn't go very far. So similar kind of thing. If you said today's cars, if we're going to have everybody having a car, and if everybody's going to want to drive from, on a family car trip to Florida twice a year, that means the gas tanks on these cars will have to be the size of a Mack truck, like of a tanker truck, and the consumption of them and the pollution output is going to be at like a personal steel plant, because you're using the data on the first iteration to make judgments about the modern iteration. The same thing is true about AI, only way fucking quicker, right? Because the Blackwell chip and the little computer it's in has basically the same amount of power as far as functionality now that the model has been trained to use the OpenAI, say, 1 gen back. You could download it onto there, or DeepSeek, or one of these other versions of the knockoffs of it, but it has all that learning in it. It's about $2,000, $2,800, something like that. It has all that power, and it uses 25 watts of power. That's now. If you ran a row of those fucking things, arguably they could probably have a similar power, like a similar AI output to the whole thing that Musk is building in Memphis. But
there's two different things there, though.
Right.
Musk's data center is
really
actually
a crypto
probably
farm.
More for crypto. Yeah. So
which is super energy intensive. Way more energy intensive even than AI, because it's permanent. That never goes down.
Yeah. Let's just take away the crypto side of it for a second. Like, the usefulness of it is in training Grok, not in using Grok.
Creating. Yeah, so, having a version.
Using Grok, like typing something into Grok, having it process that and send you an answer. It does take energy, and it's on par. It's more, but it's analogous to Google. You typing into Google receiving what you typed in, processing what it's going to say to you, and then come back with an answer and the data and all that stuff. So you can compare those two things, right? Google also had to like build the Google system and have all the data and the databases and all that stuff. So Google's sort of server farms are analogous to the data center that Grok is trained on. Mm-hmm. And you can compare the energy needed to do each of those things. It seems to me that in theory the training of a model, like, it will end at some point in time. Like, there's going to be diminishing returns,
right,
at a fairly, like, not too far in the future, in the sense that language is finite, right? Mm-hmm. So you're using language to actually translate concepts, and so also concepts are finite. There's only so many materials or minerals on the periodic table. Elements. Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
There's only so many things, right? So at some point in time, the back and forth translating of that, which is the function of an LLM, it's going to stop. Like, it doesn't need to be any better. Right. My point. Like, it's going to be good enough. And then at that point, it's what do you use it for?
Yeah.
So there's a point where the 18,000 GPUs in Saudi Arabia are useless. Like, they're not needed for anything.
Right.
They want to
what is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia actually going to make or do other than crypto? And again, for people that don't know,
it's a crypto farm.
Yeah. So it's yet another crypto farm so that people can buy and sell things off grid that they don't want people to know about, because in a cashless society, you need a new version of cash. And that's what everybody's counting on crypto to be, so that mega preachers can hire hookers without getting caught, because they don't want to get busted writing a check like Jerry Springer did, right? That's the issue. So you pay in crypto and you get around people knowing that you're lying morally, right? That's where we're going with all that shit. That's why they care. right? On a massive scale, it's drugs, guns, and people. It's slavery. It's, that's what it's used on the bigger scale. But on a smaller one-to-one scale, it's used for morally questionable behavior that your own local society might be against, whatever that is. And if you're in the United States, that's usually like hiding the fact that you're doing drugs or you're getting prostitutes or something like that you don't want your neighbors to know about. If you're in Saudi Arabia or Iran, it might be simply that you don't want to be killed for buying a subscription to the New York Times, right? Like that kind of thing. And you could do it that way. So when it comes to South Korea did this thing a while back. They did a robot bill of rights because they were concerned, kind of like AI, that the mistreatment of robots, if we make these robots and we don't have rules set in place, people will beat the shit out of a robot and eventually the robot will decide it has had enough. And so thinking in terms of where sci-fi has warned us about, they created a robot bill of rights about how you can't just mistreat them. It also has a secondary social characteristic that goes along with, like, serial killers always start with cats. And these might be the new serial killer thing that a kid grows up abusing his robot and decides he wants to take it out on a real human being at some point, right? That's a concern. And it's absolutely reasonable that you would worry about something like that. In the meantime, Saudi Arabia gave AI citizenship, that they were going to give robots and artificial intelligence, whether it's embodied or not, citizenship. Now, why would they do that? Well, because they tax them, because they are not humans, at 100%, which means they can set up crypto mines that mine throughout the world, and they can either, they might be crypto mining not just Bitcoin, but some nation-specific coin that they could. It's like being able to print the currency of another country, right? You would be able to do that. And the way they do it is in the exchange, they would keep the money for the royal family or whatever it is. But for the country, they would tax it at 100% or 80% and then use the functioning cash of that. But in the making of that, they would just keep the funds. It becomes a crypto mine that just feeds the government's budget, right? That's what they're talking about. And so Navarro and these motherfuckers all think that that's something we should be doing. That if we mine crypto in the United States, we could pay off our debt with the crypto mines, because if we took one of the big DoD computers or all these things, which we can use taxpayer money to buy huge amounts of these super chips, instead of creating an actual AI farm on this, we create a giant crypto mine and mine all kinds of crypto and then sell it for cash once it's out on the market, and then use that to pay down the debt. This is their theory or whatever. This isn't, and they didn't think this up, but that's where it's coming from.
They're more concerned about wanting like a Visa or MasterCard rip on a transaction, I think. The server farm for crypto is actually looking for a transaction fee.
Yes.
And
especially on the meme coins.
They become, So I'd like to say that on the Korean robot bill of rights, I actually see that as a way to evolve property rights, because if there's robots roaming around, somebody owns them, because they're so, like, an animal is like when you go out and walk your dog and the dog bites somebody. It's not the dog's fault. It's the owner of the dog's fault.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So if you've got a bunch of robots roaming around, who owns them? And if they're faceless, they don't have like a logo on them. They're just doing stuff. And if society decides that they're inhuman, then, and they can go just, destroy them, knock them over, do stuff. So I think that law is a sort of a social engineering, in a social engineering sense, is a way to protect anonymous property.
Right.
And I think that's going to be, those types of things are things we haven't really thought about a lot. It reminds me, going back to when society had to change from kings and serfs to democratic led
Yeah.
towns, and property rights were a key aspect of that. Um, and so this robot Bill of Rights, I think, is similar to property rights in the transition of societies
Right.
like that. Um,
Okay.
and in terms of these things, like I don't know that any of the people in charge right now think past getting a rip on the transaction. Like Trump
Right.
just feels as if by quote unquote selling $5 billion worth of NVIDIA chips, he thinks he's the salesman for NVIDIA. NVIDIA is America.
Right.
And NVIDIA now owes him some percentage of $5 billion because he
Right.
sold it to them. And on top of it, he wants to double count it and say,
Or he
I made
allowed
us
and he gave them an exemption
five.
so that they could sell these
Yeah.
things, even though the law might say otherwise. It gives him a little bit of flexibility to allow for the sale to the Saudis when the law might say, no, anybody who's sponsored terrorism or we have an issue with on those areas is not allowed to do that. Like at this point, I'd be shocked if he didn't sell some of them to Syria next month.
Exactly. I mean, he's already talking about taking sanctions off of Syria, probably because there's money sitting in Syria that they want to access. Like, you know, I don't know. Who knows? At any rate, in terms of like these things, like the server farms, like they're really gonna. So we've talked about like 3D printers. Tesla is a good example as this as well. They put the car out. A car is just sensors and motors, right?
Right.
And then seats, so you can sit in there and it drives you
Yes.
around. And to make it work, they can dramatically change the reliability, the function of it with code, with firmware code,
Yes.
or software. And so when your Tesla, the reason why Musk calls Tesla a software company is because he doesn't actually consider the car to be the thing.
Right.
And the car is the thing traditionally in America, right? The actual object of value is the car. But in the world of electric cars, the car is not the thing of value. And that's one of the reasons why the Chinese electric cars people think that they're going to take over the world. Because they're actually thinking about an electric car like a cell phone. It's like a disposable object that you might only keep for 2 or 3 years and switch it out. And they're acting as if I just get motors and cameras on 4 wheels in people's hands, it doesn't matter what it does today because I can work for the next 3 to 5, 10 years changing the software under a subscription model, and I'll unlock functionality, or I'll increase its reliability, or I'll do things that have value to that customer. And that will be the reason why they continue to pay me for the object that I don't go give them a new one for. And that's the switch. The switch is, John Deere is doing the same thing.
Sounds an awful lot like what they've been warning us about the World Economic Forum shit, like you will own nothing and you will be happy. Sounds exactly like what Musk is talking about.
Right. I mean, look at stories about John Deere. Farmers are really upset with John Deere because John Deere basically like gives them a tractor that they can't work on. And the only way you can fix it is to either call them and they do stuff over the phone and over the Wi-Fi, or they make someone else come out, or they have one of their people come out to fix it. And you just can't do anything with it if you don't have if you don't call them. It's the same thing. That's why, like in early 3D printing, it's happening now. Yeah. We bought a MakerBot Z1, I think it's called. It was like the biggest one they had. The thing worked like crap for like 6 months. And then all of a sudden it was like within 3 months, it was like regularly improving. And then all of a sudden, like 8 months after we bought it, it worked really well. And it was all because we just were updating the firmware.
It was all, it was set up essentially to the advancements. The mechanics of it were never going to change. The advancements of it.
The motor is the motor.
Right.
Right. You only need the motor to do a certain function. Yeah. And it has limits in terms of what it can do. But but its limits are beyond what you're going to ever need it for.
Right.
And that's what I keep trying to articulate.
Yeah,
the,
that's a fascinating part of this sort of like sales pitch that Trump is making everywhere. Melted Cheetah gave a big thumbs up for MakerBot. I gotta say, the first MakerBot that I got, which is the kitted wooden one that you could put together, like they came out with a nicer one, but it was no different. It just looked better because they built the frame.
It was injection molded instead of cut out of wood.
Yeah, so the one I assembled, the very first one I assembled was from those cut pieces of wood and slapping it together on the frame on the outside of it. But it didn't change the material functionality of it at all. And it was, at that point, based on the slicers that were available to you, which is how, for those of you who don't know, if you take a 3D model of something, before you print it, you have to put it through a piece of software that tells the thing like how to make the layers and where, and when it's a solid piece, whether or not to fill it in completely or with hexagonal patterns to save plastic, to maximize density but make it lighter, all those kind of things. All those decisions have to be made so it can go into the actual device and be printed. You can't just grab the object and throw it in there because it wouldn't know how to start making it, and it would, if it just went on that and there wasn't any variability in the slicing, everything would take way more plastic than it needed for its structural integrity, and it would also have all kinds of ends and dribbly parts, and spaghetti would come off of it all the time because it wouldn't know where to start and stop. So that's a crucial part. Slicer software is how you take a 3D model, you put it in there, and you basically tell the 3D printer how to go through the process of making it. And it's that slicer software got better, the device got better, because the device just followed its lead. It followed the slicer's lead, and as the slicer got better at telling the gauge on the nozzle how hot to make it, you could switch out what kind of stuff you'd use, or you could swap out the nozzles, and that would tell you whether that would decide whether you could use a thicker material or what have you. So whatever you're making, there was a lot of these things that were a factor of it, but none of it had to do with the mechanics of it, with the exception, I would say, of changing out the nozzles on some of these things. But it's kind of like a CNC machine where you use a different drill bit or a different cutting bit, but that's expected. Now, AI, to your point, there's okay, so let me show you, I want to show you real quick. This is humane. This is the ironically named, I suppose, I hope not, Saudi AI. Humane AI. Get it?
So adorable. The main human?
Yeah, right. So this is their website, and this is the English version of it. Now, one of the things that's special about Humane is it has a large language model that is built in Arabic. So the crucial big change that they did was, instead of translating something from Arabic, using like China does. China, and you can tell this because of, if you ask it to give you a picture, even DeepSeek does this. If you ask it to give a picture of a Chinese dish, like Beijing Kaoya, which is Peking duck to most of us, but it's Beijing roast duck. It will give you a picture of the city of Beijing as a guy roasting a duck, because what it would do is translate it to English and then bring back an image based on what the English words mean, not what the Chinese words mean, or the colloquialisms. And the Chinese is full of colloquialisms.
The language is actually quite simple. Like
yes,
it's the word handwriting. It would be like, a lot of words are like handwriting. They just combine smaller words into these bigger things that have meaning. Like I think computer is human machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
like you don't, like saying don't come in here. If we said don't come in here, you go 你不起来, like come in here. So that explains why we think of what we think of as pidgin English, because it's a one-to-one. Okay, boo means no, so that people, if you're just reading a phrase book and you were just using a dictionary one-to-one, that's what you would sound like. As a matter of fact, when I was in China, one of the funniest moments I had was I called my girlfriend in the States at the time, and I hadn't spoken English all weekend. I had been making a point not to speak any English. I was running up against the limit of my Chinese, but I was like really trying. Yes, 电脑. That's a computer. It literally means electric brain, right?
Electric brain. Sorry, I thought it was
yes.
human machine. There's something else.
Yeah. 电视节目, you know, like they're like hand phone. You know,
sorry,
like
AB corrected me.
So there's a bunch of these kind of things. Anyways, so I called her up, and I'd just gone to the Western Palace, this place, and you hike up to it. And I said, she goes, "How's your trip?" And I said, "Good. Yesterday we go Big Mountain," because I was still translating. I was still speaking Chinese, but I was translating it back into English in my head. I'm like, sorry. I mean, yesterday. Okay, sorry. Blah, blah, blah. And it was pretty funny because I was literally speaking Chinese with the English words, right? Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of
Shouji Jianhua is what Smarty Pants is saying. Shouji Jianhua is hand phone. That's a cell phone. That's
and that's a lot of reasons why when a Chinese person learns English and they have an accent and they also speak the way they speak, it has a lot to do with like not being used to plural versus singular.
Right.
They're used to only singular, or they speak in combining words as opposed to a new word in English. We'll like make up a whole new word for a thing. They tend not to do that.
Right.
But it's really it's interesting when you think about that. AI is actually quite good at contextualizing. So when trying to speak in Chinese, it would be its only way to understand what it's saying and translate is to have looked at what other people say the translation means. It's not doing it on its own. Like it's not connecting this or that. It's literally like this huge amount of stuff that it was trained on. And inside that stuff, somebody along the way said electric brain was a computer. And so the only reason it knows electric brain in Chinese is computer in English is because it read somewhere that that's what it was.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that's
you put
really
a phrase
important.
book in there. But that also it creates an issue with linguistic syntax or whatever. And like I said, a lot of people who have what we call pidgin English, it has a lot to do with the fact that they're using a translation dictionary that's a one-to-one without the greater context of how the language flows. And English is full of that shit. It's way more complicated. So anyways, let me show you why this kind of stands. Yeah.
That's why that's really important in Arabic, because you need to go to the source and you need to train it on the source.
Right. So Laura Lee's asking, how's the broken kittens? We dropped them off this morning. They're going to be snipped and we will pick them up this afternoon and they will be exhausted and hungry. So here's the, full AI stack, endless possibilities. Well, I got news for you. According to the EU and even our own rules, we don't want endless possibilities. We definitely want an end. We don't want it to be able to create a bioweapon. We don't want it to be able to teach somebody how to build a nuclear bomb in their garage. Like, we want those possibilities to end. Like, these are cute phrases and they work in kind of like, personal development workshops, but no. Okay, but we build the entire AI stack, and this is the interesting thing. So they are delivering. This is not about AI centers in Saudi Arabia that they're building physically and putting in other countries. So France is not going to come to Saudi Arabia to get shit they can buy themselves and put it together in their own language. But what they want to do, what the Saudis want to do, is be the main supplier for the Middle East to have these AI systems that they might use for their cities and all kinds of stuff like that, and be where they house them. So not only are they the mecca for actual Mecca, they want to be the mecca for AI in the Middle East, so that if you need to go there, that's where you need to go. Okay, so they build data centers, cloud models, and applications, so you don't have to piece things together out of the box, end to end, with Humane as your single partner, right? So okay. Now, technically not, because these are all the other ones, including AWS, which is the Amazon Web Service, which is where most of this shit is going to actually occur. and they want to be a middleman between. They're not creating chips, is my point. They're buying NVIDIA chips and setting up these server farms that anybody with anywhere close to that money, which is most of the bigger countries in the world, can do right now. They don't need any fucking help. There's no specialized knowledge in Saudi Arabia, nor would they be. But the only thing that they do know is that the vast majority of Middle Eastern countries can't do it, right? So they're going to be first in this area. So they're trying to be 80% of the market in this thing. Okay, unified purpose, limited future, application solutions, AI models, data platform, infrastructure, blah, blah. Demo the future today. Well, look what we have here. What are the 2 ways you can demo? Yep, there it is. So Grok is their English one. They're just, that's why they had Elon Musk down there. They signed off on this being the through point because they don't care if the AI that they're using is anti-Semitic. It's kind of the point. And then secondly, Alam, which is their Arabic first LLM, which is the Arabic LLM, ALLAM, Alam, kind of like you see llama, okay? Culturally fluent Arabic LLM built to understand dialects, values, and local nuance, which is going to be, I mean, there's not a lot of difference between the 2 of these because if you want to see digital misogyny, both of these are going to be piggybacking. Arguably, this might just be a translation of Grok that's happening, that's training this model using the language itself and the religious texts and maybe the cultural texts, some historical stuff, whatever, the way China does, where like if you ask it about Tiananmen Square, it's going to say it never happened or that it was Western misinformation. And, Grok does the same thing, except when it, goes to, where is it? Ask it about white genocide in South Africa.
Yeah, somebody asked about that. Did you?
Yeah.
Like they want people. A couple of the people in the chat asked if we'd comment on the South African genocide stuff.
Well, again,
but first,
there's
Saudi money in X. Like there's Saudis helped. Musk put together the money. So when they say they're using Grok, they own part of Grok.
That's right. Yes, this is their model as much as it is his. XAI it might be a Saudi venture as far as we know. And then what happens though? Do they move? He's got his big fucking crypto farm in there. Are they going to build the Grok housing structure in Saudi Arabia?
Why? You don't need Memphis. Just put it in Saudi Arabia now.
Put it in Egypt at the actual Memphis.
This could just be like a bunch of rich people just trying to have their data center be the one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or be the one that gets used.
Right. Yes.
But in specific to this is where it gets like in the weeds. But Grok, in theory, isn't okay with South African genocide.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
Or isn't like it has no opinion about South African genocide. That's a better way to say it. It has no opinion about being anti-Semitic, whatever. It's gotten a whole bunch of stuff, and then the model sort of is the general accumulation of all that information, all the words that it read, and the way that it gets. I'm not exactly specific. So there are pending comments about South African genocide. I'm assuming that they're trying to articulate to people that, hey, by the way, we should help these people that Trump brought over. I have no idea what it is. It's pro or con, or you get in the mix of that. What I'm trying to say is that people at X, like filter Grok. They tune Grok specifically to give you that answer. So it's not Grok doing it. It's the people in control of Grok and the application that you access Grok with, basically saying, hey, Grok, when you get answers in this, or when you get questions or people talking in this genre, make sure you remind them of this thing, or make sure you have this attitude about it, or answer as if you are, I don't know, Hitler. You can literally say that. You can do that right now inside of Grok. You can say, Grok, answer me as if you're Elon Musk. Answer me as if you're Gandhi, like
Yes.
whoever you want, and it'll
Right.
do it. So I think that's the important part is try not to blame Grok, quote unquote. It's literally Elon Musk's people
Pet
or
project.
his
Yeah.
management that
Well,
he is
yes.
pointing them to ask them to say that, ask them
Yes.
to tune it so that it does that.
Yeah. Well, and also, I that is the ongoing issue with Grok, is that it is constantly being trained and retrained via Twitter to become more like that all the time. Right. So it's trapped in this cycle of input that it's not getting. The vast majority of its new input is coming from Twitter.
So what if you were to like have all the information in the world, and then you moved to the South, you moved to Alabama, and then everybody you were around for the next 5 years told you all about the Confederacy and how it was they should have won and everything was great about the Confederacy.
Right.
You would like focus on that chunk of information that you previously learned, and when somebody asked you about it, you would give an answer based on what you had. Like you got more information about that than you had before. And that's sort of like how Grok is working. It's not actually training when it's being used. It's actually being tuned. So it's like if I were to give an answer on this, more of my information says that there was no genocide until a whole bunch of people basically told me to disregard that or to balance it differently. And now I'm going to say there was a genocide. Right. After 6 months of tuning or 6 months of people talking to it from the standpoint of there being one. I'm not sure if I'm saying that in the right direction.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. But as far as we may be getting into the nerdy reads for our audience too much, and I want to point out a couple of things.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I do the same thing. You and I forget, and we start talking to each other, and other people are like, we might as well just be making beeps and bleeps. So while this is happening, and again, this has a lot to do with like people's pop culture expectations about AI and sentient shit and all that kind of stuff, mixed with their fear of old wars becoming new wars fought with new weapons that are made by new technologies in a way that just kind of cycles back in on itself. And largely the contributor to that, I would argue, is people like Elon Musk, genuinely scummy, intellectually low rent, morally questionable dickheads who have a lot of money throwing it around in the wrong directions and don't realize they're playing with a blowtorch. And that concern, I think, is where people go, right? That if it's going to get away from anybody, it's going to get away from that dipshit, right? That's the concern. And you've got literally the stupidest people we've ever had in charge of the government currently, while the smartest technology is being born upon us. The contrast is extraordinary. It is almost like if there was an Illuminati and your goal was, we want AI to govern the world. We want to start a technocracy where governments are actually run to maximize efficiency for individuals and all this kind of stuff. And people suck. So we want to take humans out of the loop in governance because they can't make the tough decisions and they favor their friends and all this kind of shit. And we want to build AI to do it, but nobody will allow us to do that because they're all afraid. They trust their fellow human beings, and they're afraid that this will go rogue. And then you go, well, okay, here's your idea of a human being running thing. Here's Donald Trump. And everybody's like, you know what? Can I see that computer thing again? that might actually, right? That if you were trying to set up a situation where you wanted people to like go, Jesus Christ, can a computer run this fucking place? Because these guys are assholes. You would fall into that. So he tends to draw attention that way. So Elon Musk tends to your biases about him, which are reasonable, create a trajectory where you expect him to behave in a certain way, and you do not trust that he will go in a good way, or that he is, even if he wanted to, he's smart enough to know what the pitfalls are. That's the twofold problem. That's the Elon Musk quandary, right? On the one hand, he's an evil prick, really, and the other is he's stupid and doesn't realize he's playing with the nuclear codes. And this is the same thing about Trump, right? That we have a concern with. I would argue that eats up a lot of hard drive space in the media. And while that's happening, all this other legit AI stuff that might be more concerning or more of a story or certainly something where people would have to adapt to it is happening all around us. And no one's paying attention to it because Musk and Trump are driving this kind of like crayons and hammers version of the conversation where they're just like scribble, scribble, thump, and okay. So my point is, if I have one, and I think that I do, is while that's happening, we're all familiar with, I brought him up a couple times, Hugging Face. So Hugging Face, if you don't know, is a website that is open source. And it is a place where there are repositories for open source LLMs. For the large language models that make up these things, you can go to Hugging Face. Here, let's see if I get the, is this my site? That's Humane. Where's Hugging Face? There, it's over here. So here's Hugging Face. This is the website Hugging Face. Okay. And on here, look, there's DeepSight, which is a generated version of DeepSeek. There's NVIDIA's Parakeet model, which you can download to your NVIDIA chips and run a local LLM that is as strong as 2 generations ago of OpenAI without having to be connected to the internet or cooking massive amounts of energy, right? There's tons of these. There's agentic AIs that you can download that you can choose to unleash on your computer or not. And everybody's testing. There's Flux, which is an image making one. And this is the pro model that you can use for free now, which is think of all the companies that are trying to make money as image generators from I guess from I don't know what I forget, like the newest biggest ones don't even chart anymore. I guess the LTX Studio, those kind of things, or Videogram or any of these things, that's there. Like you just download that onto your computer and poof. And if you want, you can train it with your own materials, which has scary and fascinating aspects that I don't even have to talk about. I think your mind can immediately go here. NVIDIA's Open Math Reasoning one, which is for scientific mathematical exploration. Open Code Reasoning. You can download that one, pop that on. What do you want? These are huge. This is why I don't believe the hype about how much energy we're going to need, because these all fit the 99%. I would argue 99. This is the 99.9% rule for Rob Glenn. Rob Glenn 99% rule 0.9, because these are like high level logic coding things. Okay, so Hugging Face is this just open website, right? It's cute. It's like, I don't know, Discord for AI models, right? You can put data sets on there that if you want to train your own model, you can download a bunch of them. There are spaces to work on stuff. There are AI papers that people write. You can study it all you want. There's a community where people can work together and create some. People can post because there's a social media aspect of it. The whole site, though, is this fucking ongoing push and again, the biggest thing is the models you can download. Enormous, right? Again, technology not available to human beings 5 years ago in the history of humanity. Now you can download it onto your laptop and play with it there. Okay. So we've been thinking about like Hugging Face. It seems this is open source. This seems reasonable. We associate oftentimes open source with nonprofit, for example, which is not necessarily the case. It certainly isn't a way to maximize profit in a very specific way. But if you were trying to train models on the cheap and find the cheapest models, being a repository for the free versions of the newest things and only being half a gen behind the biggest ones in the world and having access to all of those is a great way to take your company, which is a little cute open source website, into a major player in the AI space that is buying humanoid robot companies with the money that they are making on there. So they bought this company Pollen, which, by the way, if I've never seen a more French-looking robot in my entire life. This fucking thing looks like a character in a French cartoon about a mime who woke up in a robot's body. Um, it's like it's worried about how narrow his chest looks, so he wears horizontal stripes. But this is happening while Elon Musk is dicking around making his fucking bots. But I mean, I almost, they're basically marionettes, for fuck's sake. Do the Trump dance to YMCA and this showing them off in Saudi Arabia, and these rich dickheads thinking they're actually special. And I guarantee they all have people working for them that are like, dude, these are nowhere near the figure ones that OpenAI is putting out there. Nowhere near Boston Dynamics. This is 4th gen bullshit. They'll look cute in the mall, but they're not going to do anything fucking worthwhile. If you want to do a warehouse, we'll get a bunch of digits and throw them in there and off you go. But this company is buying a mobile, like this was wheel-based at first. They're adding legs to it now. Hand-based, highly manipulated, manipulatable, I don't know, hands on this thing that it has sensors in its hands so that it can pick things up that are delicate and knows how much pressure it is putting on it, which is a huge deal in these situations. So they bought this and they're just like, we're going to make it open source. We're just going to we're going to make our own robots and you can modify them all you want to. So we'll be like the Radio Shack of robots for a while. And then we'll put out our own model and it'll be way ahead of everybody else's because we become the free R&D lab for everyone.
Yeah. So this is an open source version of exactly what Musk is trying to do. And that is he wants the robot that he's showing around that's effectively remote control right now. He wants to get that out there. So just like we talked about before, the motors and the eyeballs and the stuff are in your hands. Mm-hmm. And then he'll improve it later. He'll make it work later.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing here is they're effectively like replacing, they're sticking that physical item into the hands of the people who are doing who are part of the open source community doing the actual hardware, software.
And this goes to that thing you said about John Deere earlier.
Yes, exactly. So it's an open source way. It'd be like if Raspberry Pi like put the actual board in the hands of the people developing the OS that goes on.
Yep.
Like you need people to have the physical thing to actually like test the code that they're using. And if everybody's got one, you've essentially distributed an R&D office to every household that has a coder in it.
Right. And any improvement they make will be based on the open source structure. And so they're just by the nature of using it, you're automatically updating the newest, coolest aspect of it to that stuff.
Yeah.
And now there will be, let me read this little piece and I'll get your comment on it. So it goes, Wolf said he wanted robots to be open source, which is the guy from Hugging Face, which is one of the reasons Pollen was an attractive acquisition. Pollen's the company that was making this little robot because they were building it on an open source platform. He said robots, especially humanoid robots, should be controlled by open source AI models because safety and security were essential with a system that can take physical actions in the world. He said that open source software has proven over time to be more secure than proprietary software because more people can scrutinize the code for security vulnerabilities and work to patch them. For example, he pointed out that recently security researchers had found that Unitree, a fast-growing Chinese robotics company, had left a backdoor security vulnerability in the open source software for its robot dog Go 1. Which could allow anyone to turn the robot into a surveillance device. Now that's what I've been talking about with the Unitree dog and their upright walking robot that they have, that them being able to program in a backdoor click on proprietary hardware that they put into the thing made everybody really nervous. And they were right to be nervous because that's exactly what had happened. So the Go 1 put a backdoor in those dogs, those walking dogs that you see. And again, don't get me started on a Qatari airplane, but it's not difficult. The difference is that because people were being able to modify the software online because it does not, out of the box, China hadn't developed software or AI strong enough to actually make it do a lot of shit, that people were able to open it up and look. And because they were able to open up and look, they were like, wait a fucking second. this thing can be turned on remotely, just like a Tesla apparently can be turned off remotely by Elon Musk from his fucking desk. That's a problem. That's where you get the concept of like iRobot issues and those kind of things. And if you've got hundreds of people who love robotics and are interested in it, keeping an eye out on this versus a company that might want to hide that they allowed a backdoor into their system and now they're ashamed to show it, so they release an update to get rid of it, but they don't tell you what the update just says security update, right? That kind of shit, which we see all the time. This is, so Unitree Robotics pre-installed an apparent backdoor on its popular Go 1 robot dogs that allowed anyone, I wonder who has the proper door knock for that back door, to surveil customers around the world, according to findings from 2 security researchers. Clear evidence of a backdoor in a widely sold consumer technology is rare, and it affirms that longstanding concerns from U.S. officials that Chinese-made devices could quietly enable foreign surveillance. This is why we don't sell BYD cars, the Tesla equivalent of China cars, in the United States. Because Tesla vehicles have like 8 cameras on them, something like that, 6 or 8 cameras on all corners. And you can request from just like a Ring doorbell, you can request footage from Teslas that are parked in the area that are constantly recording. If you get a warrant, you can get the footage from a car that's just parked. If there's a bunch of them sitting around, you could get multiple angles of a circumstance that occurred just from parked cars. The BYD ones can be turned on anytime they want.
If they're self-driving, you can just self-drive it to wherever you want to surveil.
Yeah, you could park a car out there, right, and turn on the cameras, right. And the dogs themselves, like, you could have it fucking in your garage, and if it has the little arm on it that can open doors, for all you know, while you're sleeping, the fucking thing could get up, walk out of your garage or your house, walk down to your neighbor's house and film them through their window and then come back on its own. Imagine if they saw the fucking thing, followed it back to your house, and, Chinese spies were just looking into your friend who worked at the State Department 5 blocks down. You had no fucking idea, but they're using a device that you think is just basically a novelty in your fucking rapper fantasy Diddy home that you live in. So anyone who came across the public-facing web API could see where Go robot dogs were, and if the robot was online, they could view live camera feeds without needing to log in. This is why the open source part of it is good.
Yeah. And, there's an interesting thing happening, like a car, I was mentioning it before, a car in the US right now, that's something that some people buy them short term. But they're resold. On the used car market, a car can last easily 15 years.
Yes.
And so if you think about a car like a cell phone, or like I'm not sure that the next company that is robots or AI is going to be an Apple or Microsoft. I'm not sure that can exist anymore. Microsoft and Apple, they came at a time when the device had such a high cost of entry that they got the device in everybody's hands. And then you had to change the device often. You had to change it every 2 years at least, early. And now maybe you can get 4 years out of a cell phone, but a lot of people get a new one every single year, right? So the point I'm trying to make is a robot's more like a car, not a cell phone. And because it's got bulk, there's a lot in it. There's a lot of raw material in it. Is what I'm trying to get. And so once they're out there, it's gonna be more like the car market versus the cell phone market, where they're gonna get out and they're gonna stay there. And it's gonna be hard to turn them over. Like I used to work on commercial fitness equipment. And one of the problems that this company had, I won't say it, but you might figure it out, is that their commercial equipment it was too durable. So they couldn't go refresh, even being used every single day. These things would go, a treadmill or a bike, they would go for like 10, 15, 20 years. And they were like, well, we're not making any money because all the bikes are in the places, right?
Right.
And they couldn't convince anybody to do that. So they were actually trying to get them to go less. But my point is that, um, if your car works, like the only reason you're changing it out is because you just want new features or you want it to look better, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's getting you from A to B. Robots, like we're going to have to work out what robots are. And
Right.
it's entirely possible that one robot right there, with the efficiencies of the way that this is going so far, it could
Yeah.
sit in somebody's home for 20 years, and just by updating its software, it could continue to improve to a
Yes.
point where you wouldn't need another one.
Right.
And so if you don't
And
need
on top
another
of
one and you're not
right.
selling goods,
Mm-hmm.
that changes the economy
Yes.
dramatically.
Right. And so the idea that you would get an open source structure, and if you're buying anything, you're just going the better operating system for your dog, your robot dog,
Exactly.
no matter who makes it, is this one. So you're downloading like an OS into it. And so companies would work really hard to go, we're maximizing. If you have a Go one, we will change the internal software on it, and it has all these features. And if you're already an Apple customer, or you're already a Google customer, or whatever, it will take your contacts and all that kind of stuff and load it just like your car radio that does, CarPlay or Google Play, Android or whatever it does, right? So this is the fascinating part. Okay? So the root of this dog is a Raspberry Pi. And we've talked about this before,
Right.
but a Raspberry Pi, those things cost what? I don't know what the latest Raspberry Pi cost, but like
About
what,
100 bucks, I want to say.
Yeah,
No,
I want to
Raspberry
say,
Pis,
yeah,
they're more expensive, aren't they?
well, let's see. Depends on the iteration,
Raspberry
though.
Pi 5.
Yeah, the 5 is the
It's gonna
newest
probably
one.
be a 5.
Right, but we're going to assume they'll use
Okay.
the best one. But you could probably, run
$89.
one of. Yeah, so $89. The entire system of this runs on. I want to get a picture of it. This guy right here, that thing right there. That's what's in all those robot dogs that you see. That's what's running the whole thing. It's got sensors coming into it, but that's the entirety of the computer. Okay, that's what it's running on, and that costs $89. $2,000 robot. The main brain of it is an $89 open source card. Now, eventually, more than likely, what will happen is they'll print their own board. But once they start doing that, then the trust factor goes way down. And so it does matter one-to-one who you're going to use. And so what you're going to see is a growth in these kind of things. We all use the same board because we don't need any more computing power for these things than this, and access to Wi-Fi for it to use AI, or you can use a hotspot on your phone if you wanted to keep using it while you're out and about. But most likely you don't want this thing to go running off on its own. So it's better that it has effectively an intellectual digital leash on it, right? That would be the thing, right? So that's what's inside this. So listen to these details, and this is, again, very telling. If the robot's default Raspberry Pi credentials hadn't been changed, and by the way, when you have one of those and you're downloading stuff in it, I think the code for it is Raspberry Pi. Like when you log in, the default password is Raspberry Pi on all of them. And most of the time, especially if they're used in a university setting, they don't bother to change them unless they're dealing with stuff that's proprietary. And in which case, they're all uniform. So if you know one, you know all of them. So one fishing expedition, and you would have the password to all the Raspberry Pis used in the entire campus, no matter what they're using. Okay, so if they hadn't been changed, attackers could also use those to fully control the dog remotely. They could remote control the dog from anywhere. Andreas Macris and Kevin Finisterre, who are also known for exposing vulnerabilities in DJI drones, this is the Chinese drones that we're talking about, discovered the issue while tinkering with their own Go 1s. Now, this is what, by the way, these guys do, because they're clearly nervous about Chinese tech. So they also do this with just about everything. They break down stuff. Okay. And this is the part that really stands out. They also found that robot dogs from major U.S. research universities, including MIT, Princeton, Carnegie Mellon, could have been vulnerable at some point, meaning if they had them at any time and had not updated the password when they had used the thing. During the early stages when people were buying and testing these things, for fucking months, these things were hooked up to the Wi-Fi in these schools, had effectively the kind of networking access that a computer has to another computer. They could send packets digitally via that Wi-Fi. And even if they were inert, they're just sitting somewhere, they could be operating as a relay for information, any information that was on the hard drives at these schools. And this is all happening, by the way. This shit is going on. And it's why it's good that Hugging Face, I think, bought that program. And like you said, things moving towards a circumstance where we're seeing more of these robots will be open source, and what you'll choose is how you want it to behave. And the people who develop the models for them, that'll be the trust point. And if you don't like it and somebody comes up with a better one, you don't have to swap out anything physical or go buy, oh, I got to get the Android phone if I want Gemini to be the intelligence, or I got to go buy the Apple phone, right, if I want it to run it. I can just use whatever's out there, and it will, because of the strength and the power of all the chips that are kind of relatively ubiquitous, like all Raspberry Pis are created equal, you could just download the best version of it into that, right? So
sure, yeah, and I think it's really important to, like, I was thinking about just robots in general in all sci-fi, and even like a lot of the movies, like you love Ex Machina.
Fuck that movie.
That's one of your
favorite
movies.
Oh my God, it's so aggravating.
The robot is like this super special thing in all of those. Like we're used to this humanoid robot as being this like unattainable, super special, advanced thing.
Right.
And what I'm trying to articulate is like, it's probably more like a commodity. Like the thing that we will end up with is probably more like a toy, like a commodity. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's going to make it special, like you said, is how you control it, like what moves the motors and why. Yes. Right. And in order to, like, I mean, the thing you're describing is effectively like corporate espionage. China's constantly looking for ways to effectively.
But now you don't have to go to China to have your shit stolen. What they're trying to do is create a situation where they don't even have to send human spies anymore. And it's why you don't use Huawei phones, because there was a backdoor in the Huawei phones, or the Apple iPhone that you could buy over there, that if you use their phone, they've got a backdoor into them where they can just basically listen in on every call, download all the data. So, that's the problem with TikTok. TikTok, in its TOS and in its to sign off and just use it, it gives you the ability to turn your mic and your camera on and off. But there's an element to the rules in it that say it can be turned on by other apps. So in case you use another app for a filter, you can use it. To use that means any app they create, and if they use CapCut and all these other things, CapCut can then decide to turn on your mic or turn on your camera on its own without the light showing. That was the concern, and that's how it worked out. Like that's the problem with TikTok, is that it just basically, once you say okay, it basically takes the entire contents of your phone and sucks it out, just gone. Like immediately there, it's got a copy of it, digital copy of it on a Chinese server from the jump, because you've said okay, and it doesn't give you an option to use it and pick and choose.
Yeah, so the thing I'm trying to articulate is, like, while we're sort of worried about becoming Terminator, which hasn't happened anywhere close to that, right? What we're really doing is we're allowing ourselves to be fished.
Yes, or by normal bullshit.
Like we are choosing, like we talked about, the idea of these hackers, and we're going to like bounce around on all these routers all over the world, and we're going to end up like stealing the gold from Fort Knox. It's like a hacker in the room and drinking all their Red Bulls and all that stuff. And really what happened is a woman dressed sexy and somehow got swapped the USB from some guy who walked into the nuclear power plant and then stuck it in his computer. The guy was fished or honeypotted, right?
Yeah.
So
way easier.
Like the way this thing is going to go is going to be like it always has been. Mm-hmm. Like we're fished with a cute dog robot, right? Like it's not the Terminator coming to get you. It's going to be a toy that gets you.
Because nobody will look at the sort of like rude aspect of that. So exactly. I have like that Luna doll, the little dog that rolls around, the AI dog or whatever, and that goes through my ChatGPT account, and so I can talk to it in that regard. And there is a direct line between what it is capable of doing as a rolling robot with actions that it can do, like chasing its little ball and doing that kind of stuff, and its ChatGPT stuff, which you can interact with and speak to. And it's really weird. It's poorly done right now because they don't want that line to cross, because once that happens, then that's when a robot, you go, hey, go over and punch that guy in the face. And it knows what punch that guy in the face means. And it now has a body able to do it and no limitations on the fact that it can't do it. There's no guardrails in the hardware that says, you can't punch a person, what the fuck? So that it has the AI chip that is allowing it to pick out human faces, and the fist chip that will connect it with whatever it needs to punch, saying, nope, you're not allowed to do that. That doesn't exist yet, right? So so until that exists, those two things don't happen. So it's really kind of useless. It kind of doesn't do what's on the tin. It does not do what it's supposed to do because you're not allowed, right? You're not, like, it's stopping itself on purpose. And this is true of the Boston Dynamics dogs as well. So they have an AI that can act as a tour guide, but the physical body of the thing is running basically on a track. It is told where to walk and where to go. It has interaction ability that it can do based on some interaction with people as far as verbal stuff, things that it talks about, right? But it does not have the ability to act on its own, to make its own decisions and then physically do things. It's like think of it as like a train that can talk. It's still on the tracks and it can't get off the track. It can't decide to leave the tracks, right? So,
yeah. So, I mean, this is going to end up becoming a combination of, I will call it like government regulation, and that's what stuff like this EU AI Act is doing. But
right.
There's also the market will also dictate how this stuff happens, because it's going to come down to trust. And if people don't trust it, or if it fails them and trust is lost, those things won't come back. And so, like, these things are going to work themselves out, and they're not like, we're not putting a nuclear bomb in everybody's hands. Like,
right.
It's just like it's just a dog. It's just a robot, right? Like, so the key is going to be like how far do you go? Like, at some point, those two things are going to collide. What the lack of government regulation and the ability, like what is available on the consumer market, doing stuff like hurting people, or a kid dies or something like that. This is how everything has always worked.
Right.
We don't regulate until
there will be robots will have a jart moment. Lawn darts, right? There will be a jart moment.
I had jarts when I was a kid, and right after college, I went to my mom and dad's house and brought the darts to my bachelor pad after college, and have a picture with my friends with all the charts. It's pretty funny.
I'll go to one. It wasn't even necessary. So after seeing The Last Dragon, my buddies and I took turns firing arrows at each other and catching them.
Oh God, Jesus.
Yeah. So again, everything has that moment. I don't have any major arrow holes in me, so I was very successful. If I either made contact and pushed it away, caught it, or nope, nothing, nope. Because you don't catch it like this. That's the idea. Anyways, so those are the only moments where I wish cameras had been around like they are now when I was in school, because it's pretty kick-ass shit that if I'd had that on film, I would have had my own YouTube career before that. I want to show you one other thing, and this goes to what we're talking about as far as sensors gathering information and what that's going to like. So there was this device. The reason I thought about this too was that Humane, which is what they're calling the Arab large language model sales pitch base, whatever the fuck. I don't even know what that is. It's not a thing. They made up a company and they named it something that sounds techie, and it's really just Grok and a couple other things layered on things, and it's a middleman for tech they'll buy and put together and sell, and it's just stupid. They're going to ask ChatGPT, how do you build a server farm? And just, okay, we got these things, plug those together. That's what they're doing. Great. I can do that on my own. Fuck off. And I don't need to pay you $10 million to do it, okay? But there was a device called Humane, which was a wearable AI device. I don't know if you saw it. It was one of these ones that shit the bed early. That people were, they were going to find wearables where you could have access to an AI and you could ask it things. Well, first of all, you already do with the ChatGPT on your phone, so the only thing different is you're wearing it all the time like a weirdo, or you're bringing your phone out and asking it directly. But it's even weirder if you touch it like you're on fucking knockoff CW Star Trek show, right? So it was this weird round badge that was relatively heavy. So unless you're wearing a coat, it's going to be doing this to your T-shirt. So there was a medallion version of it. You could wear it as a necklace, but then it's bouncing all over. It was like, there's a lot wrong with it. Okay, so there were a bunch of guys online who test these things and show them off and, do little unboxings of new AI gear. And I have a couple of those things myself that I picked up. I think both of them are in my bag because I was road testing them myself. One of them is interesting. It's a little AI thing that has a face recognition chip in it and some other stuff. And if you're in a hotel room, you can literally set it down and it'll watch your room for you. It looks like Dr. Theopolis. It's about this big, and it's got a camera, and it will tell you, I think the maid was in here. The person that came in with them didn't look like the maid. And, I wouldn't eat anything in the fridge or whatever. Like, it does that kind of stuff. And that's kind of cool. Like, I was interested in, it was very cheap. It was a Kickstarter thing. And, they can update it, right? So maybe it'll become useful at some point, right? Okay, so this company, Humane, that made this stupid fucking weird chip thing was, let me see if I can open this up and show you.
I searched for it and it comes up in Google, but then it forwards to hpiq.com. So
yes, okay.
Maybe HP bought them?
They did. Sorry, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, you jumped it. It's okay. That's fine, though. So let me show you what they did. So this becomes...
That's what I'm here for, Al.
Oh, yes, exactly. Open source to this point, and then it pops in to this thing they call Cosmos. So what they decided was they'll buy the hardware from this company. They'll just basically suck it up because it shit the bed. And they'll take the hardware, which is fine, and put their own software in it, which is exactly what we're talking about. And so they created this across the scope idea that it's going to line up with all your HP devices, your HP laptop, and if you use Windows, it won't matter. The device itself will have an AI chip in it that will cling to this chip and maybe use an app on your phone, no matter what your phone is, and they'll all talk to each other in the HP ecosystem. And a lot of businesses use Hewlett-Packard. Famously, you'll recall that Betsy DeVos was busted for selling HP printers, which have networking chips in them that you can use for all kinds of shit. Russia was taking, washing machines on the internet, Internet of Things, and using that to, create guidance systems for drones and shit like that, because the chips are very multi-purpose. That's why you don't sell high-end scanner printers to Iran, because they will pop them open, take the chip out, and use it as a guidance missile system, because that's how advanced these things are. So HPIQ is going to be their linkage of all these things together, right? Okay, so what they did was then you click on Humane's site, which forwards to hpiq.com, and HPIQ is what they're calling their platform. Now, this is very much like, they're calling it Cosmos. That's their thing, okay. And it is a agentic AI and large language model receptacle that combines all the things. Now, what I would say is HP, which is a real company with real hardware that makes real shit and has for a very long fucking time, has developed this thing that they're going to align all these things. They're not there yet. They're obviously in the process, because most of this is a fucking job ad. Like you know how they always click and ask you to sign up for early access thing? All this says is, work with us. Join our team now. We're hiring.
Yeah, join us. Join us is a main link at the top.
At the top. Postings. Yeah, at the top of the page, it literally says HPIQ Platform Enterprise. Join us. Like it's a fucking Borg.
They've got a lot of open jobs too.
Yeah. Oh, yes, they do. I mean, if you're looking for work in the AI sector, even if it's just application, like you can talk to companies and tell them how they could possibly use this. Believe me, they will suck you into their hardware in a second. But so intelligent agents for every task. Again, You could borrow open source things as a platform, start building on it in the same way that DeepSeek built on top of OpenAI's Chat GPT and built their own thing on top of it. It's not that difficult, which is why they're going at. You could argue that maybe they will reach a point where this will be entirely agentic. There will be no one working at HPIQ as a human being. But at the same time, there's this AI bus orchestrator. This is the main thing that they're working on. It's just linking all these data flows together into one thing. I would argue Microsoft's like 365 already does this. Apple's ecosystem is based on this concept. Google now with Gemini is doing the same thing. OpenAI with its ability to remember things and its availability in Siri in the future, which is happening this fall, is doing this. This is what's happening, where it can remember shit about you and it saves it to your phone, but it doesn't save it to the cloud and blah, blah, blah. Okay, then parallel processing, all the pretty graphics, intelligent error handling, yada yada, scalable and adaptable, and multimodal control, and how Cosmo works. Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. That device that they bought that everybody's like, fuck is wrong with you? What are you doing? It's a little note taker thing that you like. Remember that book I love about Julie told me about? Like, it's basically your short-term memory. Now, in the age of weed, I would imagine this is incredibly useful. As people's short-term memory gets eaten alive, and therefore none of that transitions into long-term memory, believe me, weed smokers are going to be all wearing these things. If you want to tell somebody is smoking a shit ton of weed, they're going to be the guy like, hey, remember that thing that Carol said? Otherwise, I'm in deep shit. Like that's going to be a regular thing. So this thing is like, they're going to add it to CarPlay. They want it to be part of this ecosystem that they're creating or whatever. But they bought this hardware that's effectively like open sourced, sort of. There's an open source version of this very thing. I don't know why the fuck.
It was a startup.
Yes, it was a like a Kickstarter thing, and they sold a few of them, and then people were like, "This sucks," because there was no infrastructure behind it. There was no major LLM.
There still really isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's still like the idea of the clicker on your lapel is also not. I mean, it's not even close to being there.
No, and
I think you're more
clunky.
You're more likely to like put a thing on your ear. Like
I agree.
It becomes like a Bluetooth device. That seems more logical.
The douchebag adaptation of Bluetooth headsets. There's a whole sub-industry of dudes who would walk around, looking like they were a Star Trek Next Generation character, right?
A lot of people walk around with earbuds in everywhere. Like, that's a total thing.
Absolutely.
It seems more logical to do that.
I completely agree. And by the way, the headphones I'm using right now, these are called Nothing Ears. This is not a paid advertisement at all. I got these because I needed some reliable fifth generation Bluetooth to shorten the delay between my computer and my ears without using hardware, so I could move around. And so I've gone through a bunch of iterations. I've had some good ones that were great, and then eventually they just die because you overuse. The battery just stops cycling, and I leave them on the charger all the time because I use them for work. So it's, these I remember to remove or I take with me. But I have two sets of these because they were relatively cheap. But these are called the Nothing Ears, okay? So Nothing Ears are these little guys. And I don't mistake them for my AirPods or whatever. They're specifically for work, okay? They are attenuated to my devices just for work, so whatever. But you can... The reasons these are like Nothing Ear AI is because they have noise cancellation, and you can, just like you can squeeze them and use like move to the next track or stop or pause stuff like you can on a lot of headphones. You can assign ChatGPT to these, so you can either vocally ask it stuff. If you ask for it like you would ask for the S Lady or the A Lady from whatever device you have. I'm trying not to trigger everybody's shit. You can either trigger it by touching it, or you can say it out loud and it will wake up and you can talk to your proprietary account on ChatGPT. And I would imagine there are multiple widgets they're updating it all the time, kind of like you were talking about, where you can have that in that. Yeah, they're Nothing Ears. There is the device. And I got these because I actually got them as a gift for my girlfriend's kid because he was traveling. He was looking for a good thing. We were talking about AI a lot. It came up in like my searches for like really, good ones.
But
And
that's tethered to your phone, right? So like when it uses that, it's basically communicating with an app on your phone. Is that true?
but so yes, it's not built into the ear. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Like your
So it's
ChatGPT is
still
not built. Yeah, but
yeah. So the unique part about it is it has some extra thing in there that triggers the app to on your phone to listen to you as ChatGPT.
right. So
Is
they
that
have,
accurate?
yes, it is. But on top of that, they don't just make, here, I'll show you their ad. And again, this is not, I'm not paid by any of these things. I'm just talking about these things because we're talking about like open source shit and the value of it. So these are those headphones. These are this is their newest version or whatever. They come in a fancier box. And they also have open ear ones, the kind that sit on your, they're bone conductive, so your ear is open. It goes behind your ear, but it sits on your cheek, like your jawbone or your cheekbone, and sends the information through your bones that way, which is cool if you're working out and those kind of stuff. That said, here's the other thing that they are moving into, and this is sort of more like the headphones were an entry level way into this. They're making their own phone, and their phone is open sourced and hackable and modifiable. So you can take elements of it and say, I want this feature, not that feature. And you can basically crack the phone and put different elements. You can either get it assembled in one way like this, that has basically the same features as an iPhone or something like that. Now, I don't know anything about the quality of these things, and this is their beta. So they're testing these ideas. But the idea is that you would put together this phone based on the kind of stuff you do, like you pick the Max or the Max Pro, whatever. But the idea is that you would be able to, it's basically a broken iPhone is how it would work. And you could put whatever software that could work. Yeah, you could jailbreak it. Yeah. And with it, it comes with
not broken as in doesn't work.
yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, jailbroken sort of there. So then it links up with its own shit, just like Apple's Airbud, their AirPods work together and that kind of thing. But the idea is that you'll go buy groceries, even if you're an oddly small-chested Asian man who might be AI. I'm going to go with AI in this situation, that this dude doesn't actually exist. But the point I'm trying to make is that with these CMF earbuds that they have, I'll show you that they have, these are their proprietary ones. They just look like kind of normal ones, but they operate basically the same way. There you go. Oh, move over. And they come in, they're like the lesser kind than the ones I'm using, right? Mm-hmm. That are more adaptable, but they go specific to your phone. So they come paired to your phone. These can jump to multiple devices, just like your AirPods can, which is the other reason why I thought they would be valuable in this situation. But the point is that there are like connectors inside them that you can choose what's important to you as far as its value. And what's going to come along with that, and where they're going with this, is a downloaded AI in the phone that is specific to you, that doesn't go to the cloud and tell it what's in it. It's specifically security based on your phone. And if you ever sell your phone, it just blanks it, or you could transfer it once and then it goes away. That's where a lot of these things are going. And what you'll end up seeing is there's going to be a bunch of companies, because this technology is getting cheaper and cheaper and easier to produce, where people will be able to buy these phones, and then you can license Apple's OS if you like that. You're in their ecosystem. Or you can license the Google system, which is probably the one that will go open source more quickly, because Apple's always very protective about their device, because they are a device company. But let's say HP decides they want to do an OS based on their Cosmos thing, right, that we were talking about, that they want this to work with a phone, but they don't want to make a phone. So there's some company that uses, that you can just download the Cosmos app that works with your shit. That's where stuff is going to go. And then what will happen is, because it's open sourced, the device, a lot of people will have it and they will check it. They'll kick the tires to make sure that it doesn't have malware in it.
Yeah, once stuff disconnects, like the walled gardens go away. And what
Yes.
I call a walled garden what Apple effectively is, where if you
Yep.
buy an Apple, you've got to stick an Apple and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy an Android, you're a little bit more open, but you're pretty much stuck with Google when you're on
Yeah.
Android. Um, but if those things just became the connector,
Mm-hmm.
and what is a phone? Like, we call and we text, but
Yeah.
after that, all the apps are. It's basically just a thing to play games on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a screen to
Yeah.
surf the internet. And
Yeah. It's a little monitor
so
that outsources its purpose to the cloud or to a little bit of a chip
right,
inside of it or a downloadable piece of software that you put in it like a little computer. It's just a keyboardless. It's a laptop with no keyboard, but it's really fucking small.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
and that's the way it's
I mean,
going to continue to be.
everybody,
Right.
yeah, I mean, everybody out there's trying to sell a widget. Like, they need to
Yeah.
sell you something in order to have any value. So, like Zuckerberg believes it's glasses, and
Yeah.
HP obviously believes that it's the OS and this thing that's on your shirt.
Yeah.
But so who wins that is who knows? Who knows where that's going to go? It's going to be based on preferences.
Right.
But I think my thing is, like, I think that the general fear revolves around like being so connected to a thing. The story has always been that the thing
Right.
got so big, we lost control of it.
Yes.
And it just seems like everything that's in front of us is showing us that nothing is going to get big. It's actually going to be a lot of little things.
Yes, it is.
And so it's harnessing all the little things, and a decentralized approach is actually much safer because it limits the damage
Right.
when something goes wrong, right? It's more likely going to be that than it is
Yes.
the monolithic building of Skynet,
Right. So there are, so I use, many people know, I wear the Meta glasses when I do Nerd Halen, mainly because they're a good
Yeah.
camera, for getting little moments. But also I can live stream the show from them. And the goal has been for a while, and by June 14th at our next show, and when we're playing here in Vegas, I'm going to have everybody in the band will have, because we're at least doing it here, so I can bring my shit over and try it out in a real environment, whatever. But everybody can stream to their Instagram account directly from their glasses.
Okay.
And what I can do
Yeah.
is call up their Instagram accounts, do a screen capture of each of those, and then put that on a different channel in OBS, and somebody could switch back and forth between our view of what we're seeing based on what the most interesting
cool.
thing is. So if he's soloing and he's looking at his fingers, you could see Caleb playing. If you're seeing me singing into the audience, you'll see me seeing the audience singing back to me, and those kind of things. And we'll be able to rotate that through. And we'll also have a recording of it when it's all done from that point of view and externally, so we can intercut videos for ourselves and stuff. And that's what happens when you have a band called Nerd Halen. But in the process,
you're supposed to have glasses on.
I
so
know
it doesn't look weird at all.
it's like an obvious win-win. So Meta has a new version of their smart glasses that are going to come out. So the guys will have better ones than I have. But this is one of the things I was saying about and we'll talk about this next time too, because I want to do a show and tell of some of the devices that I've been fucking around with and seeing if they work and kind of the limitations of them the next time we do this. I might even have to move my part of the show into the other room, into the living room, so I can show the little thing rolling around on the floor, or maybe I'll play video of it. We'll see. But the wearable market that's happening out there is, like I said, AI can only go so far without data. And the data is how it's going to make decisions. And that data is going to come from real human interactions and material measurements, weather sensors, water sensors, heat sensors, like how much the ice is going away in the Arctic and the Antarctic, trackers they put on marine life to see how they're breeding and propagating, those kind of things. Like that data is the next big line, because the decisions that AI makes, just like the decisions that humans make, will be limited by the amount of data it has to base those decisions on, right? If it only has what we've seen so far, it's not going to make any better decisions than we've made. And our dear friend, the Major Ojeda, who's running for office, one of the things he wants is that like all lobbyists should be wearing body cams, essentially, when they're meeting with politicians, or vice versa. That if you're a registered lobbyist and you meet with a politician, you guys have dinner, you got to be wearing a fucking body cam during that whole goddamn meeting. And if you don't wear it when you meet with them, you're in deep shit. You might lose your ability to lobby legally, and you'll get a mark on your record and that kind of stuff. You know, if the battery magically dies or whatever the fuck, right? So there are a bunch of devices like this, like Plaud, which is the little card. This is called B. It's one of those things where you press that and it takes notes on the conversation that you're having, and then you can remember it later on, and you can go, she keeps bringing up this movie I got to watch, and I always forget what the name of it is. And that part will be up and go, do you want to save the whole conversation or just that part? And you go, just that part, and the rest of the conversation will evaporate, or something like that. Or you're trying to figure out what your kid wants for Christmas or whatever. So during a few conversations you're having with them, you have them talk about what they're interested in, and then it starts searching AI. Go like, maybe they want this, so hit them with this. See if this is what they're talking about. Because if they're being cagey about it, and they don't tell you directly, which kids are wont to do. This is pretty funny, and this is I don't want to be rude to our weed smoking friends, but I feel like you're the target market. Never forget anything again. This is a little clip-on thing. See this thing? Hold on, I'll see if I can show you. This guy. It's super weird. But it clips onto whatever you're wearing. It's basically like a lav mic that's on all the time. And it will, any appointments you have, any of these kind of things. Now, for personal interaction, fucking useless. I don't think anybody that I know of will want this for dinner with friends or personal, like relationship stuff, unless they're in a legal issue, custody issue, a lawsuit, something like that, where you need a recording of everything that happens when you interact with someone. That might be a useful way to do it. I have had to have a pen camera a couple of times in my life for my own safety in a circumstance, and I have used it because of that. That said, this thing, if you're in business and you're in sales and that kind of stuff, and you're constantly wearing this, and the person brings up, how many units and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to take notes anymore. You can just have a conversation with them and go, what do you think you'd want? And it's taking notes. It will go, they wanted 31 units of this, and they were talking about this, and you should hit them back to ask them about being more specific about those later on. Like, so for business, this kind of stuff is going to be everywhere. Anytime you run into somebody and they're having lunch coming from the office, they're going to be wearing this shit. I can see a device like this working in espionage, says Templeton Zagat. Absolutely. Well, I got news for you. Those are already here. Regular headphones that, like he was talking about, that they're already there. They're already happening. This stuff is the overt version of it. This isn't the covert version of this stuff. That said, so there's the Meta glasses, and then there was, AI wearables. That's going to be one of the next. Humane was the ridiculous one that we talked about before that HP has apparently bought. I have the Aura Smart Ring, this guy right here. Now, I also have an Apple Watch, but and supposedly for health reasons, they do the same things. This is useless for the health part of it. Doesn't do me any good. You know why? Because I only wear it when I'm awake. This one tracks your sleep, and you can wear it all the time, and it needs to be charged every 8 days, like 8 days of charging on one thing. You can wash your hands. It's sealed. You can get it wet and all that kind of stuff. You can go swimming. Not a problem. You can with the modern Apple Watch, but I'm always nervous about devices like this. And maybe the watch is fine, but the band gets soaking wet, and then what the fuck? But this thing is fine. And if you're trying to improve your sleep schedule, if you're trying to check your stress, check your heart rate, monitor that kind of stuff all the time, these are a great way to do it. This will become a lot more ubiquitous. I would watch out for more people wearing multiple rings that do different shit, including listen and do things. And believe me, if there's a device that can track everything about my physical body, somebody out there is wearing a ring that does everything that little pin or wrist thing does that we were just looking at. AI frame glasses. The limitless pendant is another one of those things. It's very much like the other thing. I don't know what this friend AI thing is like. That's like a fucking Furby. It can, it's just like your little friend you can talk to. This is the Omi. And this is what I'm talking about. You're going to see a shit ton of these things showing up everywhere because all they are, and they can be proprietary or they can be open source. This is going to be a bunch of non-proprietary, like watch for Hugging Face to buy one of these companies and go, yeah, this is an open source thing. You can change what it tracks through your own looking. You can download your own shit into it, and it will only do what you ask it to do, as opposed to you're downloading some software from some company and you haven't checked the TOS and it says it can turn on anytime it wants. But this is their glasses development kit that they're working on, which is going to be giant and stupid for a while. This is their chest pendant, which is going to look like this one day, I suppose, but currently looks like the pick of destiny. And then it interacts with apps that you have because you can talk to it because your phone does too. So basically it's just a fucking microphone. And that's why these things are pretty much all you need, is what you're right about this. I'm going to let you go because we've gone overtime, and I know you got to run someplace, and I got to prep for the afternoon show because there's a lot to talk about in all this stuff. But I want people to recognize that while everybody's paying attention to the dipshittery that is Elon Musk and his baloney sales pitch. By the way, this is LiDAR. This is where LiDAR maps are available in the United States. You can see entire topographical LiDAR maps that have been scanned from the sky in all these areas that are blue, wherever there's a blue line around here in the United States. I don't know why this won't scroll over. There we go. Anywhere there's these little blue areas, they have been completely LiDAR scanned. Look at all this area around DC and all that. And up here, yeah, not surprising. There are topographical LiDAR maps of this entire area, every inch of terrain. So, way down there in Florida, they've done the same thing. There you go. So, get out of here. So, we'll talk about some of that and the data that they'll have to get to be making good decisions. And then in the meantime, while we're saying there's a lot of open source stuff out there, I'd like to remind everybody that everything is technically open source if the hacker knows enough about what they're doing. So the DJI guys, DJI doesn't want people to be able to break into their drones because they were finding out that there was a backdoor in all the DJI drones, which is why you can't buy DJI drones in the United States anymore. I have a couple. I don't use them. I don't even keep batteries in them until such time as somebody puts like a jailbreak software out there that I can upload into the thing. I don't trust it. So I'm not, it's like if I was at a concert and I just used it for video or whatever, I'm not too worried about that. But once I'm downloading it, that's when it's hooked up to my computer. That's where it gets sketchy. So all of these things are going to be things that we face over the next little bit while everybody's fixated on what Elon Musk is doing. And it is sketchy and it is stupid and it could be dangerous because he doesn't really give a shit. All the while, and Rob will tell you, this stuff is happening behind the scenes and it is upgrading itself on the regular. So, yeah. So don't do drugs and stay in school, kids.
Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you. Thank you so much. I know you're busy.
Today.
I'm looking forward to seeing your space in July when I come out for the CPT thing and for the Hody Bash. And
you're welcome to come.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I don't know that you'd have to invite me because I feel like I would just barge in on you because I'm very excited for you and I can't wait to see it. So, Rob Glenn, Root Design, Friday Eye. I think we've covered a lot today. I think we've almost covered more topics in this episode than we ever have. And again, we're still both very bullish on this. But the main people that people are worrying about the most are largely a distraction from what's the advances that are actually happening behind the scenes. So anyways, love you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. I'll let you go.
Yep. See you, Hal. Have a great one.
Cheers. Off he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, there he goes. Rob Glenn, Root Design, everybody. And if I may, hold on, there you go. Let me bring in the chat real quick. And there we go. Boom, and it'll wake up. He knows how to exit. Yes, he does. He waits until I let him go, and then he signs off like a gentleman. Thanks, Rob. I'll listen to hour one now. Yeah. So there's obviously a lot about Trump's AI trip to Saudi Arabia and to the Middle East in general, and it seems like that's what his big thing is. They've got this thing. Saudi Arabia has a thing called Vision 2030, which sounds very much like China's Vision 2050, but just closer and sooner, and based on the fact that they're super fast advances and all that shit. And it is based a lot on how fast they think AI is going to change things. And I cannot stress enough how much life is going to change in the next 3 years. And the biggest concern I have is that the people who are running things are too stupid to understand what's going on. That these changes will require a lot of adaptation, a lot of changes socially, economically, in terms of labor, employment, manufacturing, agriculture, giant leaps forward that are going to be shockingly fast, and faster than any sort of shift we've seen technologically in history. And when that happens, the people who are running the regulatory agencies or are running, who are having to deal with the lost jobs and all those kind of things that will come naturally from this, those folks are morons. It's shocking how dumb they are. And by the way, I would include all the people that we saw, at least in the front couple of rows, at the Saudi Arabia event, because there's the idea that there's like a computer genius in the royal family down there is absurd. They definitely hire the right people, and they've got a ton of people who are very smart. The question is, can those people, can they tell them the truth? That's the problem we have with Trump right now. Nobody's allowed in his own administration to tell him an uncomfortable truth. I would argue the same thing is true of most, if not all, monarchies. I suppose the Norwegian monarchy is okay, and the Brits, they take everything with a stiff upper lip. But in terms of like Middle Eastern monarchies, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, those folks, they tend to be surrounded by yes men, right? And I'm not even worried that they're going to do something to us, because the damage will be internal first. Because all these things will spread outward. And if you lose control of something, you lose control of something. And so we will have countermeasures to protect ourselves. But if they're developing it for themselves, there's not a real reason why their own AI they build wouldn't know what their countermeasures are and already, because it helped design them. So the thing to watch out for is how aware these people are that they're getting out over their skis. Because I think the Saudis, because they're in the oil industry and they sell to the whole world, are aware of the business versus social ramifications of what they do. The difference between like the sort of Orthodox Muslim society that they allegedly live in and the world they play in is very different. And so they're not as hardline as the people that they rule over by any measure. The rules don't, heavy rules for thee, not for me, is clearly how all of the monarchies in that area work. The question will be, do their business people, the people that they've hired for that interaction, do they go, yeah, we got to watch this because we could really fuck ourselves up. We could shut down everything. We do every oil field, and we could be trying to maximize our output while lowering our costs, and we could freeze up the whole fucking thing. Hal, have you seen Trump's pink scalp on top when he leans forward, comb over is failing? Yeah, his hair is falling out at a nasty clip, and it might be because they had him on steroids for a while, which will make some people's hair fall out. He might have also been attempting TRT to deal with his weight at one point. It's a little past the window, but if you raise your testosterone at that point, it also can make your hair fall out. He's also fucking old, and his hair was already going. And he was taking finasteride, I guess, and I don't know that he still does. But because again, that affects your, at that age, it can, one of the things is it can give you, can affect your secondary sex characteristics, as it were. And so you'll see, that might give you titties. And that might have been what he was fighting back against. So he took it for a while and then didn't take it. But again, none of us know if what we're hearing on his medical report is true. I would assume it is not, because it's fucking absurd. And he looks like shit right now. Now, anybody that age, most of us, if you're making, if you're flying to the Middle East or to Australia or fucking Japan, we all know what it's like to go on a flight that long and be tired and have meetings as soon as you land. Now, arguably you can sleep on the plane, but let's say you can't because of the time change, or you're dealing with some worldwide thing. That's why people age in the job. As much as it's the stuff they encounter, it's also the hours and the intensity of the hours. And last time Trump didn't give a fuck. He didn't really age like other presidents because he's a sociopath. This time, he has promised so many people who are fucking crazy that he is going to deliver for them that it's pretty scary if you don't. And he also, we know he has no shame, but he can be embarrassed. And so between those two things, not satisfying the Laura Loomers of the world and also being, scared of being embarrassed on the world stage because he clearly was not able to end the Ukraine-Russia war in one fucking phone call, right? Clearly BS, to the point where he had to tell the press he was joking when he said it. He said it in jest. Not I was being hyperbolic, but I was literally joking, which is like, what the... If you give a shit about, you just want people to... Were you joking about the part where you just want people to stop dying too? Because you said that in the same fucking breath. Was that the punchline to your setup that I could end it in one phone call? I mean, why don't just after he says, after he says, I just want people to stop dying, they should have just gone, you know what I mean? If it's a joke, then it's all a fucking joke, right? So, the point I'm trying to make is that these guys are not intellectually capable of handling this change, and there are two things that they're facing. These are the two trains that have left the tracks. This change is coming, and they are incapable of dealing with it. And those tracks intersect, and they are perfectly timed for a collision. And so Trump's stress level, whether he likes it or not, is going to continue to climb because of the enormity of the stuff that he's facing in his presidency and all the promises that he's made, that he may not give a shit if India and Pakistan kill each other. He probably doesn't give a shit if they nuke each other. He probably thinks India's going to win because they're a bigger country, even though Pakistan's smaller and it has the same number of nukes. So, again, nobody wins in that situation. We all have heard Joshua's statement on the subject matter. The only way to win is not to play, right? So clearly that's true. But I think he thinks the bigger country will always win because he and Putin are both Tretiak from the movie The Saint. Always bet on the biggest rat, right? So while I don't think he gives a fuck if they kill each other or what happens, the stress of having it be like, no new wars, right? If one starts, that's why he had to stop the Houthi bombing and pretend he won something and take it on the chin from the Houthis, is because everybody was going, wait a minute, I thought you said no new wars. What the fuck, right? And that wasn't us. I mean, we were saying it to poke at him, but it wasn't us that was like getting to him. He doesn't give a shit what we think. It was the Laura Loomers of the world and the fucking people on Newsmax and fucking Turd Nugent and all those folks. Like, they were starting to go, hang on a second. When they were making phone calls to the White House going, well, I thought you said no new wars. This has been like 50 days of bombing. This is longer than the first Iraq war, buddy. The fuck is happening? That's why. So mix that with the travel, the fact that he has no fucking idea what he's talking about, and he knows it, and he's surrounded increasingly by people who do know what they're talking about and know he's full of shit and are standing there right across from him going, really? Are you sure that's how it works? Who work for very powerful people that he has an interest with. Yeah, the trade war isn't turning out the way he said. He's backed down on all of it. He's tucked his tail between his legs. He's embarrassed about that, clearly. So we'll see. But this period of time is already aging him in a way that he can't even process. Somebody pointed out that picture of him earlier today on Blue Sky, I think it was, that Trump was like holding his pen in his left hand and was like his face is drooping. And you mix exhaustion, bad diet, and all the bullshit that he's been through, you can trigger a stroke in somebody in that circumstance. Hold on, let me see if I can. Sky app, there you go. This is. I'm going to sign in real quick. I don't know why I'm not signed in on this one. There we go. There you go. There we go. Yeah, let me see this. Like, Trump left hand. Probably will, yeah, pop up. There you go. Yeah, this one. This is the one where everybody was like, yikes, dude. He's like, hello. Like, we literally have, he's become the meme I have created.
Oh, hello there.
I gotta say, if I was more charitable and he had a sense of humor, which he absolutely does not, I would think he was doing, now get out of here, kid, you bother me. Like, it's almost like he's doing Groucho Marx. If you put a mustache on him, but he doesn't know that, so he can't be. This is not good. His face is drooping on this side. It was drooping yesterday when he was falling asleep. I mean, it's not out of the question that they will Botox this motherfucker on his way home to hide the fact that his face is drooping. And then he's like the whole like holding it in his left hand because his right hand isn't working right. So he's compensating, right? So yeah, this was the pose of the Trump and Cutter. His face and mouth are drooping. He's holding his pen in his left hand and he's right-handed. Common signs of a stroke coupled with gibberish coming out of his mouth, which is likely to be expressive aphasia. There's a lot to this. And again, on top of it, he's just old and this kind of travel is hard on everybody. And he eats shit, drinks garbage, doesn't take care of himself, doesn't believe in exercise. He's probably on Ozempic and they're not saying it. So God knows if he starts having one of the side effects that exist, how are they going to cover for that shit? That looks fake. It isn't. That's a picture of him and Cutter. And that droop on his face, that was happening yesterday. And I would argue, like, I guarantee, what's his name? Brian Glenn was on TV getting fucking Botox. I guarantee that that's one of the things that they're going to start doing with him. You're going to start seeing his forehead stop moving, if they haven't already. I haven't really paid attention to that part of it because he looks so fucking weird anyways. I mean, he's a little weird about, Adderall and Sudafed mixed together. Yeah, not a good mix when you're exhausted and you're old and you have a shitty diet and you don't exercise and your brain is fucking camel pudding anyways. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I apologize. It's early. I forgot. That's my bad. Anyways, I love you guys. And at least,
Here I am like an idiot.
Yeah. So, this is not good. This is not. I mean, many people are like worried about his brain failing. I mean, I think more of us are worried about the kidney, and it's.
You are one.
Me. Anyways,
the kidney has a very special place in the heart.
Ah, yes. Well, I'd almost forgotten about that. I was a little concerned, but I'm fine. Fine now. Just nobody say the K word, okay? Also, there's nothing about him waving at. This was, by the way, when Mohammed bin Salman or one of the other people was walking into the room, and he's like, "Hi." So, which is fine. Just saying. The world would be so much better a place if people could just be who they are without being all pent up and fucked up. Again, if it's consensual adults, you do you, boo. Okay. So, I'll see you guys this afternoon. I'm not going to stroke the... No, I'm not going to do it. Nobody is. And to Trump and his crowd...
Oh, hello there!
See you guys later. Hey, there's the Venmo. If you feel like buying me a cup of coffee and you use Venmo, take a picture of that symbol with your phone and you can just go, "Hey, thanks, great show. I learned a lot. You were very charming and informative. Here's $1. Or you could super chat or super thanks if you're watching this later on. Don't forget. I like the staggering that it does. It's like max headroom thing that my graphics have been doing lately. It just does not like the browser sources right now. Bet you there's an update for OBS, but I'm afraid to try. Don't do coffee or Venmo? Okay, well, super chats will work just fine. Or patreon.com/HalSparks. It's a consistent way to help the show. If you can't do anything, don't worry about it. Just give some applause and some love to the people who do. You guys are awesome. Okay, I'm out.
The Illudium Q-36 explosive space modulator.
He's a genius, eh?
Hey, you want to make $14 the hard way?
You think you know something about everything, don't you?
Gee, I wish we had one of them doomsday machines.
Oh, nice marmot.
I got a bad feeling about this. No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
An interesting way to open up a conversation.
Cinderella story, out of nowhere, a former greenskeeper now about to become the Masters champion.
It looks like I'm a wreck. It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
I tried calling, but they don't have a listing for Mr. Wonderful.
What spelling did you use?
Just follow the money.
That was really cool, by the way.